Today on Built to Last, it's us versus them. Rat rods versus traditional hot rods. Is there a wrong way to build a car? Find out next.
I got a T-mount Ford in a flathead mill, 2 carburetors and a dress to kill, cyclone head and an arm clutch, top down top mansion buds, too much. Well, she shakes and rattles at about red line, and nothing in the world feels quite so fine. And on your dress, when I go past, she built for speed. Yeah, she built the last. Well, she built for speed. Yeah, she built the last. Well, she built for speed. Well, she built the last.
These cars may look the same, but their differences lie in the core of a controversy in the custom community. Traditional hot rods versus rat rods. Two sides with strong opinions, strong beliefs, and strong ideas on how a hot rod should be built.
Rat rods were just poorly done hot rods. Some of the magazines decided to glorify doing really bad work. And I think that people took it just a little bit too far.
I like both rat rods and hot rods, traditional hot rods, but my personal preference is rat rods. I think that they're more artistic and more unique compared to traditional hot rods.
I don't like them. I don't really see how they fit in to the hobby as far as traditional hot rods.
Well, traditional hot rods are the old style of building hot rods. They look just as nice as building a rat rod, There's a way of building a traditional hot rod and a way of building a nice looking rat rod.
I view rat rods more in the art car vein, but it's their car. I can't tell them what to do to their car. If they ask me, I'll give them my opinion, but I wouldn't do it.
I just don't think they look what goes into building a rat rod. The only thing I've ever seen different between a rat rod and a hot rod is, the hot rods are more painted and stuff like that, but you can put the same ingenuity and all that into a rat rod that you can put into a hot rod.
When somebody takes a classic vehicle, a beautiful or potentially beautiful vehicle, and they slap street signs on and Home Depot or whatever roller paint on their cars, I think that's a disrespect to the car.
Well, I like the rat rods. To me, it's more interesting. You can put just about anything on them, and they get a lot of looks.
Rat rod to me has turned into, let's set out to build a piece of crap. You're going to purposely do crappy welds. You're going to purposely make something really ugly. It's not what it was all about.
For this car, when you're working on a certain part of the car, you have to figure out, one, how do I make it work? Two, how do I make it safe? So there's just a lot more engineering into this car, even though you get guys that'll show up and say, that's got to be easy to build.
Rat rods are an unfinished build, in my eyes. Rusty, raggedy, bouncy. You'll be in a clean, nice riding car or one that's gonna give you a tetanus shot.
Cars have been pretty cool. I could dig it, the way they built their style of car. I noticed it real big in the rat scene. They were doing some pretty funky, wild stuff.
Every car is different, as long as they're safe, but pretty much I don't think there's a right or a wrong way.
You're watching Built to Last.
Hot rodding started when the guys, after World War II, these guys grew up on a farm. They were driving a tractor. Maybe it was the only motorized thing they even had. They go off to war. They're flying planes, driving tanks, jeeps, seeing all this crazy stuff, and living. Life has suddenly gotten faster. But when they came home, I think they had a little bit of money in their pockets afterwards. And they were bored, so they were taking these old Model A's, and what they were doing is they were trying to go as fast as they could. They didn't care about paint. They didn't care about a lot of things like that. What they were doing is stripping the fenders up. They were doing all these different things to make the car go faster. They weren't setting out to build a piece of junk. They were trying to go fast, safe and fast.
Back in the 90s, there's a car club in Southern California called the Shifters. They would host the car shows at Viva Las Vegas. One of those guys started calling them rat rods, just off the cuff type deal, and it stuck. And the thing with that is, those cars were actually traditional hot rods, just unfinished and rough, but still traditional hot rods. And that has snowballed nowadays into just straight up nothing has to do with anything with traditional hot rods. Or you get a skeleton mirror from the truck stop, and they just do all kinds of weird stuff that was never done originally. And just cartoon cars. They're pretty much like art cars, where people want to get artistic with it, like an art car, and put a bunch of skeletons and stuff on them and make them look cartoonish. That's their thing, whatever. That's their thing, but it's not for me. It's not even hot rodding anymore. It's just so far separated from hot rodding. It's totally like an art car.
I don't think it has really anything to do with the cars. It's a success because everybody wants to be noticed. And in order to get noticed, you do something crazier than the next guy. It doesn't have anything to do with style anymore. I'm just gonna make a crazy car. So I'm gonna build a rat rod with 20s. It might not look so hot, but nobody's done it. So I'm gonna do that. And then hopefully everybody will say hi to me at the next car show. That's mostly what people want. They just are screaming out to be noticed.
I think it was you were trying to rebel against guys that wanted a finished car, a completed car, a clean classic driver. And the only way to stand out from that crowd was to do things that were so outside the norm, which would be finding an old street sign and slapping an old street sign as your floor, and hey, let's wrap some barbed wire. We're hardcore, and we're a rebel to the custom car culture. I think that's honestly where it started to come from.
A rat rod's usually just some parts that are put together, or if they're just something laying around and they could build something out of, then they do, and they become their own little characters.
I was in Vegas for a big show a couple years ago. It was the last one I went to, and there was a car there, and everybody was making a big deal. It had all the traditional rat rod kind of stuff in it. It had a skeleton sitting in it, and it was painted with green highlights all over the place, and the guy even had like a Frankenstein bolt on his head, on his neck, and everybody was looking and saying, "Wow, look how low that car is! That's so cool!" And I walked over and I took a look at it, and I was like, "Oh, of course it's cool." The frame was welded to the axles. You couldn't even drive the car. Of course it's low. It's sitting on the axles. No springs at all. It was welded to the axles. You're not going to drive something like that. That's ridiculous. I don't understand why anyone would set out to build a piece of junk.
There's always going to be people out there that don't care to look into the history to learn how to do it correctly, don't care about honoring tradition, and just want to build a bucket just for bragging rights.
Now people just want to be noticed by everybody. So I'm going to build a car so I can go drive down the street and everybody can just wave at me and tell me how cool I look, and then I can post it on Instagram and I can be famous for whatever reason. And that's just not what it was about. Now you go to a car show and there's singing and dancing and people dressing up, stupid and trying to be noticed. And the rat rods gave them an outlet because it was cheap and easy.
I mean, it's hard for me to really speak where a rat rod came from because I don't like them. I don't like rat rods. So where they got their ideas and where they came up with what they have, I don't know. I would like to see it end.
I guess my style's changed over the years as far as what I like. You know, it's progressed a little bit. I still like 60s, 50s and 60s styled cars. My cars, I've done a lot of research on how custom cars were built in the day, and there's a couple of people that I thought their style was really cool. Don Varner was one. He was a painter in Northern California, and his paint style was just amazing. And then there's Larry Watson, who I became friends with, and even him and I had conversations, and he told me there was right and wrongs, things that he would do, things that he wouldn't do. One of them was he would never put flames on a Cadillac. That was just one thing that he felt he just would never do. And mine is I'm going towards better workmanship in the metal fabricating side and form and function, that type of stuff. Doesn't always work out how I plan it, but that's the way I'm headed.
I am more traditional. I'm not so traditional that I'll only go with drum brakes or a flathead engine. I think flatheads are beautiful engines. I am kind of a stickler. I don't like to put Chevy engines in my car. Not that I think Chevy's a bad engine. I think any of the big three, they're fine. If any of them were so bad, they'd be out of business. I happen to I put Fords in Fords. If I'm building a Chevy for somebody, I'm going to put a Chevy in it. I mean, that's fine with me. I got a little tired of the Chevy 350 only because that's all you ever saw. Is it a good engine? Sure, it's a damn good engine. But so I'm a stickler for things like that. Am I a stickler for traditional in all of the old ways? No, absolutely not.
If you're building a car and you don't know what you're doing and everything's just off, you're gonna build a death trap. So there is a wrong way to build a car. And you have to really pay attention to the little things.
This whole car culture is a community, and we need to keep that community, and we need to help one another build better and better vehicles rather than slapping whatever we find in our backyard onto a car and calling it a rat rod.
I think this would be more true to what some high school kid did in the late 50s, early 60s than I guess what I would see or what I do see as a rat rod. It's got a little blown small block in it, kind of a straight up hot rod, maybe more in the traditional vein.
My inspiration is the pre and post-war era of hot rodding, the golden age. Everything on my car is as it would have been back in those days. It's my way of time traveling. I feel like I want to experience exactly what they experienced today. So yeah, it's just my own little escape. They need to do their homework. Don Montgomery books, read them all, buy them all, learn everything you can. Hit the NHRA Museum in Pomona. There's a bunch of historical cars there that you can learn from. Dwayne Spencer Roadster, the Iskey Roadster. There's so many cars that you can learn a ton from. You have to hit a lot of swap meets, do a lot of eBaying and Craigslisting, a lot of networking with other builders, but I think that makes it worth it more in the end.
You're watching Built to Last.
When I build the rat rod, it's got to be proportionally right. It's got to look cool. I like them low. I gotta just look badass. Traditional hot rods, I love them too. I have one, and I've had high dollar street rods. They're all cool cars. It's just you just have a love for cars, so it's something that you grow into, and it's in my blood. I've been doing it since I was a kid.
My love for rat rods comes from my dad. since I was raised around old cars and hot rods. And then when he started building rat rods, I fell in love with those because they were more unique.
Well, traditionally a rat rod is built out of a lot of different parts. You know, you take parts from all different types of cars, and you're not trying to stick to the traditional hot rod sense to where it's all period correct and stuff like that. So I think that's what gives a rat rod its uniqueness, is what the imagination of the builder is.
You can just get about just any part off anything and put it in a rat rod, and just you can make it modified and make it work. You know, it just saying it gives a different character. You know, people wonder what kind of car is it. You know, what is it? You know what I mean? You know, I've done several rats, and I've used all kinds of cars and parts from different cars, and it just, to me, it gives it more character, and I love the way they look.
Basically, this car here is the epitome of a rat rod, meaning we cleaned up a yard at my dad's after about 40 or 50 years, and this is what we came up with. But it's just building something from nothing.
So rat rods were actually pretty cool, especially in the big bays when they were coming out. I liked them when they really chopped them, laid them down real low. I mean, 20 some inches off the ground from the roof to the floor. They had some real cool style and attitude.
It's just an expression of a creator, of a builder. It's inside of you, and whatever comes out, that's your work of art. That's your masterpiece, and every car is different.
You can buy a hot rod and they look like another hot rod of the same kind. But a rat rod, you can pretty much throw two cars together and make something unique. You can put things on there that you wouldn't normally put on a car. And to me, it's just like a piece of artwork.
A rat rod is more of building and fabricating a lot of your own stuff, especially with the way you want it to look and ride, the ride height, either you want it, you know, in the middle, or you want it low to the ground. And to me, that's the best way to build one, is when it's down on the ground. It just look cool, you know. But again, they've got to be safe. The welds, brakes, your steering are your main things on any car, which that is without a doubt, whatever it takes to do that correctly, you do it. That's your life inside the car.
I think any car, if you just try to cut corners, you're trying to make it look good. To me, the mechanics has to be done right first. You want it to drive good, you want it to stop good, you want it to be dependable. When people just go slap a paint job on something, but they can't get, 2 blocks down the road without breaking down, to me, that's not done right.
It should be road safe, and you should be safe driving it, but it can be crazy too and still be safe.
For this car, when you're working on a certain part of the car, you have to figure out, one, how do I make it work? Two, how do I make it safe? So there's just a lot more engineering into this car, even though you get guys that'll show up and say, that's got to be easy to build.
The old hot rods, well, it's more of a personal thing, a little more individual thing, a little bit, not everybody has a 34 Ford or a 32 Ford or a 30 Model A. Yeah, you can buy them, but it depends how nice you want it or how you want to build it. That determines how nice your car is going to be, whether you build it and put a lot of money to make it a nice traditional hot rod or a nice street rod, or you want a simple rat rod that will cost you a lot less to build than it would a nice traditional or a street rod type car.
You don't need a lot of money. You know, you can go buy a junker for $300 and just, if you don't like it, just bang it up or just fade the paint or do something, put some wheels on it, and you got a little rat, you know what I mean? Get around with it. For $200-300 instead of $40, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000, you know what I mean?
There's a lot of these cars just sitting out doing nothing, and you either got the guy that it's just going to let it sit there for 40 years, or you're going to finally build something out of it. I mean, because if you're going to build a show and shine car, one, a lot of people don't have the money to do that, and two, you can just get this rolling for hardly no money at all.
I've seen plenty of them that are poorly built. I've seen some that I wouldn't even want to stand next to.
I think there's a limit to how far you can push a rat rod, because you can make a rat rod look cool, and then you can make it look questionable.
But as far as safety goes, some of the guys kind of lost focus on that, and I think that is a potential hazard. It could injure them or someone else.
There's different levels of a rat rod, and I've gone to the East Coast, and I've been into the Midwest, and I've gone to the West Coast and here in the Southwest, and I think there's a different flavor of rat rod depending on what region you're in, because some are real artsy.
If you build it correctly and right, I don't see why it shouldn't last.
My rat rod is a 1931 Studebaker, and it's 2 cars put together, but I love it. I chose the interior. It is a glittery silver vinyl because I had to make it girly somehow. We chose the colors black and red. Let's see, it has airbags on it, so when we're not driving it, we park it and it lays flat on the ground. They need to do their research and find what kind of car they like. They need to figure out what kind of budget they have, and then they need to find somebody who knows what they're doing to build them a car. Because not anybody can just put a car together. I've learned that the hard way, putting mine together, and just have fun with it. That's what it's about.
I would tell them start with the basics. You know, find a car that you like. Don't settle, because they're not cheap to build. So find a car that you like and start with the basics. Make sure it moves, make sure it stops, make sure you've got brakes, you know, all the safety features that it needs, and then go from there. Because if you got a good, nice paint job and it looks good on the outside, but you can't move it, there's no point to the car, in my opinion.
Figure out what you want to build, what you like, and then start buying and collecting parts to build it. If you don't know how to build the suspension, the steering, your brakes and stuff like that, find somebody that knows that can do it correctly. You know, like I tell everybody, that's your main components of the car, and that's being safe, and that's your life and what you're going to be driving. You know, the rest of it, it's up to you, whatever you want to make it, you know. And so it's all you can put it whatever. You can put 2 cars together, run different grills, run a truck grill, different wheels, skinny wheels, tall wheels, you know. So it's all in what kind of look you want.
A rat rod is, to me, is just whatever you want to build, you know what I mean? Whatever price you want to put in it, you know what I mean? What your budget is. You know, like in the old days, my younger days, when they build the guy next door, or the guy who used to have money to build a real nice hot rod, where the other guy didn't have that much money, he would just put car parts together and build a rat rod, and it was just a car just put together, you know what I mean? And it was a rat rod, you know. I don't know if they called them rat rods, but you know, it's just basically a car put together with all kinds of crazy parts.
There is no wrong way to build one. You could build a budget rod, you could build a catalog hot rod, just order the parts and put them together, or build your own panels, but pretty much I don't think there's a right or a wrong way.
Car culture is car culture. I mean, if you can appreciate going down the road, it's really, you get a few haters once in a while. We went to a show one time, and I showed up with this car, and I heard, "That's the baddest motherfucker here," to "That's stupid," within 3 minutes of each other.
I've never met anybody who didn't like my car, but usually when the older folks find out it's my car, they start asking me questions about it to test me to see if I even know anything, and I answer their questions and they just shrug their shoulders and walk away. So.
Rat rods, I don't think it's going to go away, and I think it's something that's going to keep on because it's affordable for a lot of people. affordable meaning, you know, you don't have to put a lot of money into building it nice and pretty, nice paint jobs, you know, nice upholstery, you know. A rat rod can look just as nice and proportionally built. It doesn't have to have a high dollar paint job. As long as, like I said, the parts and the way you build it is built right, you know. It's got to be proportional right. It's got to look right, you know. So that's my thinking of a rat rod and a traditional hot rod. They all look nice. They're all nice cars. It's just rat rods are totally a different deal, meaning that it's an unfinished hot rod is what it is, you know. You don't have to put a high dollar paint job. It can be in primer, you can leave it rusty looking, and you can build a nice beautiful chassis with a nice motor and leave the body all rusty looking and still looks cool as long as it's done right and proportionally built to get, you know, the right way.
So whether you're a traditionalist or a rat rodder, you can't deny the passion that is behind these cars. A passion that is built to last. See you next time.